Okay, story time about how my sister caught me doing it with her man. So a little background information, I was 19 years old and a freshman in college whenever this whole situation happened. But for y'all to understand everything, we have to start back at the very beginning. And I'm talking about like back before I was even a thought in my parents' head. So back whenever my dad was in high school, he had started dating this girl who we're gonna call Luna. Now Luna and my dad were high school sweethearts. They started dating in their freshman year and they had been together all the way up until their senior year of high school. Apparently their relationship was amazing. Like my dad loved this woman to the moon and back, and apparently he wouldn't even look in another woman's direction. But I guess it was mainly because of all the shit that they had been through together growing up. So now that I think about it, maybe my dad actually didn't love her and this was just a trauma bond. We're gonna call it a trauma bond. Anyway, so yeah, they had been through a lot of things together, and no, I am not talking about the bullshit where it's like, oh my god, we've been through so much together. Meanwhile, everything they quote been through together was him cheating on her 24/7 and her taking him back every time. No, not that. Because I swear to god, whenever men say, oh my god, I've been through a lot with her, like they're really just talking about the fact that they've cheated on her a million times and she's took them back through everything. Like, y'all haven't been through a lot. She's been through a lot. Be for real. Be so for real. Anyways, pretty much both of their families grew up super poor, and they had actually lived together from the time that they were 6 years old to whenever they were 13. But during that time, they both had to deal with their moms being on drugs and a bunch of other things like the abusive men that their mothers would bring into the house and stuff like that. Just a lot of effed up shit. Eventually though, my grandma ended up taking my dad in, and Luna's mom sadly passed away due to an overdose. Well, I guess Luna's only choices after that were to either move back to her home country with her dad, or she could move in with her older sister. Obviously she didn't want to move back to her home country, so she decided to move in with her sister and her sister's boyfriend, which pretty much gave her all the freedom in the world, because obviously her sister and her sister's boyfriend were still kids themselves, so they did not give a flying what she did, which led to Luna getting pregnant by my dad. Well, because Luna got pregnant, her dad forced her to move back to her home country with him because he knew that one, Luna couldn't take care of a child, and two, Luna's older sister could barely take care of Luna, so she was definitely not going to be able to handle another child. So yeah, Luna moves back to her home country in October of her and my dad's senior year in high school, and my dad had no clue that she was pregnant because I guess originally Luna thought that she could trust her sister to keep a secret, aka the secret being that she was pregnant, but obviously that wasn't the case, and that same day that she told her sister, she was on a flight back to her home country. So like I said, my dad had no clue that Luna was pregnant. So you know, my dad is heartbroken, he's confused, he has no idea what the hell just happened, and when he went and tried to talk to Luna's sister, Luna's older sister was like, listen, I'm not supposed to talk to you, and you're never allowed to see my sister ever again. And obviously my dad had basically been in a relationship his whole adolescent life, so he didn't know what the hell to do with himself now. So like any guy that gets out of a long-term relationship, he decides that he's gonna go crazy. And when I say crazy, I mean he fucked everything that walked, and he drank and smoked and did all that shit for the first time. And because my dad and Luna's mom were addicts, they tended to stay away from alcohol or any drugs because they did not want to follow in their footsteps. Anyways, so not long after Luna left, my dad had started dating my mom, Christina, and my dad and Christina met whenever they both were in their freshman year of high school. Like, they've always been in the same classes, but they were what you call acquaintance friends. Like, the only time they would talk was whenever they were in class, and that was it. Well, when my dad got into his partying phase, it just so happened the group of kids that he would go out with, my mom was a part of that group of kids as well. So they were always going out, drinking together, partying, all that good shit. And a little background information on my mom. She came from an extremely wealthy family. I'm talking, my grandparents bought her a car as soon as she turned 16, and they bought her 3 more cars within the same year because she had wrecked the first one that she got. They went on at least 3 vacations a year. Like, she really had it like that. Anyway, so they start dating in December of their senior year in high school, which is crazy because I don't know about y'all, but you would think that my dad would have taken a longer time to get over Luna and like want to heal, which later on in life he told me that he actually never really got over her. He just became okay with living without her. And the only reason why he started dating my mom so quick was because he was used to being in a relationship. He didn't really like the party scene like that. Like, the only reason why he was going out and smoking and drinking was because, one, it's what he thought that he had to do as a teenager, and two, it was the only way that he knew how to pass time and not really think about his and Luna's situation. But I guess that whole time he really wanted to be in a relationship with someone at least. He did not like being single. Ugh, I can relate. I'm a relationship type of girl. I'm not for the streets. Anyways, my mom wanted a relationship as well, and the only reason why she was out partying was because she didn't enjoy anything else in her life. So in a way, my dad and her were kind of perfect for each other. Anyway, so fast forward to the end of their senior year in high school. My mom had no plans of going to college because she already had a job waiting for her at my grandpa's company, and my grandparents loved my dad like he was their own, so they gave him a high up position working for the company as well. Now, in my opinion, I personally feel like moved way too fast after high school. But then again, especially back then, that was what you were supposed to do. You know, after high school, go to college, then find a job, then find a wife or a husband, then have kids, and then die, literally. And if you didn't go to college, you just skip that part. So it goes high school, wife or husband, kids, die. Anyways, so they ended up following these rules by the book because after high school, they got a job at my grandpa's company, and my grandpa also bought them their house. By the way, if this timeline seems a little bit off, it's because this is all shit that my mom and dad have told me, and I've kind of just pieced these parts together by myself. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, they had jobs with my grandfather, they had a house, and then fast forward to August, the best thing that ever could have happened to my parents happened, aka my mom got pregnant with me. As soon as I came into their picture, their lives got a million times better. Anyways, so sometime between August, aka when she found out that she was pregnant with me, and the time that I was born, Luna had moved back to the city, which we all should have saw this coming, to be honest. Anyways, so sis wasted no time. As soon as she landed, she went to my dad's grandmother's house asking where he was, and my grandma had told her, but she also mentioned like, hey, he's married now. He's happily married. If I didn't mention it earlier, my parents got married over the summer. But Luna gave no She showed up to my parents' house, and when she got there, my mom answered the door, and Luna and my mom didn't really know each other. So Luna ended up not telling my mom that she gave birth to my dad's kid, but I do know that Luna went off on my mom. She told my mom that she was a and she said that my dad was just using her to get over what they had, and he's never gonna love my mom like he loved her. Oh, and the only reason why he pretends to love my mom is because of all the shit that she's given him, and he's also just using my mom for my family's money. As you can tell, Luna was mad as and also a bitter ass like, girl, you need to leave my mom alone. She did not do shit to you. Which, I mean, I get it. You know, you would want the guy that you had been with for years to hopefully wait for you, but at the same time, girly, you left. Whether it was your choice or not, you cannot expect him to sit around and wait for you. Move on. As you guys can probably tell by now, I obviously hate Luna with a passion. You guys will eventually find out why, but in the meantime, no, I have no sympathy for this hoe. Anyway, so my mom never told my dad about this encounter that she had with Luna. My mom actually told Luna that if she doesn't stay away from my dad, she's gonna get her sent back to her country. I don't know if my mom actually could have did this, but I mean, hey, it scared Luna because it kept her away. My mom did not hear about her again. So fast forward, my mom pops me out, and then a year later, she has my brother Will. Now, growing up, I had a really good childhood. My mom and dad were super attentive to my brother and my brother and I have always been extremely close. Like, I treated him like he was my own child. You know how when you were younger, you would play with baby dolls and you would treat them like they're your own, you know, you'd walk around and like just have them with you 24/7? Yeah, that was me with Will. Anytime that I was invited to go anywhere, Will had to come with me. There were no ands, ifs, or buts about it. And everybody pretty much knew how overprotective I was of him because in school, if he was crying, the teachers would call me down to the classroom so that way I could go and talk to him. Oh, and if you even tried to bully him, let's just put it this way, very early on, and I'm talking like whenever he was in 2nd grade, it only took one situation for everyone to realize that you don't fuck with my little brother, because if you do, you're gonna have to deal with me. That situation being, there was this one girl who thought that it would be funny to, quote, play hide and seek with all the kids in school, including my brother. And by the way, we're just gonna call this girl Paris. Anyway, so instead of actually playing hide and go seek with my brother, she thought that it would be funny to tell him to go and hide somewhere, and because he was such a good hider, her and everyone else would go and try to find him. When in reality, my brother went to go and hide, and she and all the other kids in his grade, or okay, that's a little bit over dramatic, but her and majority of the kids went and played somewhere else, and it was sad. They literally had my brother hiding in some random spot for like 45 minutes straight. Well, when the teachers found him, they had called my parents because they thought that he just wanted to get out of doing schoolwork. And I'm not gonna lie, my brother was a little bit mischievous at times. So of course my parents believed the teachers and they ground my brother. So when I got home that day from school, he's in his bedroom crying, and I asked him what happened, and he told me about how that girl had tricked him. And listen, I'm only a year older than my brother, okay? So I thought that it was acceptable for me to stick up for him in any way that I thought appropriate. inappropriate. So instead of going to school and like punching this girl in the face or something, I decided that I'm going to embarrass her just like she embarrassed Will. But the worst part is this girl and I were kind of good friends because she lived right down the street from us. But she knew that Will was my little brother, so I didn't care. She probably was just doing it to act cool in front of everybody. And I know you guys are probably thinking, well, Kaylee, couldn't you have just talked to her about this and told her not to pick on your little brother? Sure, I could have. I definitely could have. But hello, you are forgetting I was like 9 or 10 years old. Just talking about a situation was not enough for me. Okay, that seemed way too mature. Anyway, so my school would throw this winter festival on the last day of school before winter break, and this year it just so happened to be on a Friday, and that little stunt that she pulled was on Wednesday at that same week. And like I said, I decided that I was going to embarrass her, and where better to do it than the winter festival where everyone in school is. Now, Will and I were good friends with a lot of the older kids in school, aka the 4th and 5th graders, but we were good friends with them because most of them lived in our cul-de-sac, and we would all always get together after school and play kickball or some other shit. And like I said earlier, Paris lived close to us as well, but Paris had an older brother who would come and play with us, but he never wanted Paris there because all the older kids were, quote, his friends, so Paris's parents wouldn't let her go with him. So we rarely ever played with her. Well, Paris just so happened to like one of the older kids, and his name was Gavin. So since she liked him, she would try to be anywhere that he was at all times. And since Will and I were friends with the older kids, I told them about what happened, and we all came up with a plan. And listen, I know this plan sounds super fucked up. You're gonna be like, what type of demonic 10-year-old were you? I didn't see the seriousness of what I did at the time, if that makes sense. But like I said, I was 9 or 10 years old. So we all decide that we are going to get a group together and read a holiday book. And of course, since Gavin wanted to read the book, so did she, because we had other activities going on that she could have did, but like I said, she had this little obsession with Gavin, so this worked perfectly. And Paris couldn't read too well. Like I said, I know this sounds so fucked up, it really is, but she couldn't really read, and she had a really bad lisp. So it was kind of hard to understand her when she talked a little bit. But instead of having the teachers read the book, we asked if instead we could do popcorn reading. And the teachers were like, oh my goodness, yes, like we're so happy you guys want to read. And we're like, yeah, we really want to read.
Dumbass bitch.
We didn't, obviously. Y'all already know where this is going, most likely. But just in case you don't, everybody sits in a circle, and we had this book that we decided we were going to pass around to whoever got picked to read. And every time after one of us was done reading, we would pick Paris to read after us. So like it would be me, Paris, Will, Paris, Gavin, Paris. And to be honest, it was quite awful. She would like stutter and ask the teacher to help her with words. And while this was happening, we were all laughing and giggling and whispering and making fun of her. It was pretty bad. She actually got bullied throughout the rest of elementary school for not knowing how to read because of this situation. Like if you had class with Paris, you were calling on her to read just to be anyways, like I said, looking back at this now, I feel really bad for making fun of her for something that she couldn't control, but I'm not gonna beat myself up over it because it was in the past. What can I do except try to be a better citizen?
Stop the cap.
No, but eventually, she found out that I was the one who got everybody together to embarrass her. I mean, in all honesty, it wasn't a secret. On the bus ride home, she was crying about the whole situation, but I didn't care. I went over to her and I was like, see how it feels to be embarrassed? If you don't want it to happen again, you need to apologize to my brother, and you need to have your parents call my parents so that way my parents will unground him. So sis got up and walked over to my brother on the bus, and she apologized to him. And to my surprise, she actually did have her mom call my parents and tell them that it was not Will's fault. I mean, honestly, the only reason why I'm really surprised about this is because, listen, if you would have embarrassed me like that in front of the whole fucking school and then came up to me and demanded that I apologize, yeah, no. I would have told my parents that you were bullying me, and you would have been in even more trouble than you were in the first place. But you know what? She was a real one for that. Anyway, so you guys get the point. I'm super protective of my brother. So fast forward to middle school, which I'm going to explain real quick how my school works. Now, when you get into middle school, you meet a ton of different people because there were like 9 elementary schools in my school district, but there were only 2 middle schools. So these 2 middle schools would divide the elementary schools into 2 groups. So one middle school would get 4 of the elementary schools, and then the other middle school would get the remaining 5 elementary school kids. Now, our school district only had 1 high school, so after middle school, you were basically dumped into this sea of a fuck ton of kids. So as you can tell, I had a big ass school and class. Anyway, so fast forward, I start middle school and then I meet this one girl who we are going to call Sherry. Now, Sherry and I had a ton in common. Both of our social statuses were pretty high. So not only did we have a lot in common, but it was only right that we became best friends because we both were popular. Like, we were the girls that everybody wanted to be friends with, and it wasn't because we had like some amazing personality. It was literally because we just had attention from pretty much all the boys in school. And like I said, we were just popular. There were other girls that were a part of our clique, but we were definitely at the top of the food chain. We were well liked, and also we were always the center of attention, but it was because we were always involved in some sort of drama. And when I say involved in drama, I'm not talking about, oh my goodness, she likes the same guy as me. No, I'm talking about always having some rumor about one of us or both of us going around like every week. Like, for example, the one time some girl sent her nudes around school from a fake Snapchat account saying that it was me. And then these two girls from my school decided to take a video of them making out, and they cropped their faces out and sent it around school saying that it was Sherry and I, and spreading rumors that Sherry and I actually were dating. And listen, this was back way before whenever you were considered a weirdo for being gay. Like, I feel like, you know, as time has went on, especially recently when TikTok started, you know, we've made some progress with the LGBTQ plus community, but this was not that time. So everybody was like, ew, you guys are gross, da 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 da. And then within an hour, everybody found out that it wasn't us and it was actually these two weirdos. So I guess. Anyways, it was just super overwhelming having some shit like this happen every single week. I think one of the worst things was whenever somebody had created these fake text messages to make it look like I was talking to this guy that Sherry liked. And it was kind of believable because this guy and I were really close friends. So Sherry was super mad at me for like the whole day until him and I both told her, like, listen, we are not talking like that. But people would do this just to get her and I to stop being friends. Probably because we were both bitches, especially whenever we were friends. But it didn't work. It was kind of funny though, because you know how I told you guys that I was always the one who was protecting my brother? Well, eventually he was able to, you know, protect himself. He didn't really need his big sister anymore. But because of how much I always had his back, anything that anybody would do to me, he was like ready to attack at any second. Like, for example, this one guy who just happened to be his best friend had asked me if I wanted to be his girlfriend, and I said no. And so he told the whole school that I gave him which obviously I did not. I love whenever you reject guys and they decide that they're going to make up like a bunch of lies about you. Like, we both know it isn't true. And to be honest, you just look pathetic. Anyways. But yeah, he had started this rumor that I gave him and so what did my brother do? Will went to school the next day and beat his ass. He got suspended, but he didn't care. He literally beat this kid's ass so bad. But that's what you get for messing with his sister, duh.
No, I had to double it.
And then if there was a girl who was bullying me, whew, I would not want to be her because listen, my brother was ruthless. He did not care. When it came to me, he was willing to do anything. So he would pretend to like these girls and, you know, Snapchat them for a few days, and then he would ask them to send him nudes and he would get their nudes and send them around school. You would think that like after the third or fourth girl, they would have learned. But my brother just so happened to be somebody that all the girls like even girls in the older grades liked my brother, and they all thought he was so hot. Which, not in a weird way, my brother was good looking, but it was literally because puberty hit this kid like a fucking truck when he turned like 12 or 13. Like, he was one of those kids that looks 5 years older than they actually are. I had so many kids like that in my school. It was actually insane. Like, half the time you thought you were going to school with grown-ass men. Like, how do you look 25 when you were literally 16 years old? Anyway, so fast forward to 8th grade, Sherry introduces me to her cousin Adrian. Apparently Adrian had to move in with Sherry and Sherry's family because some things had been going on at her stepdad's house, but Adrian fit in pretty well with Sherry and I. And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of jealous of her because she was way prettier than both of us. She had the perfect body, perfect hair, like literally perfect everything. It was actually kind of annoying having her hang out with us because she would take all the attention away from us and all the boys would pay attention to her instead. And don't get me wrong, Sherry and I were really pretty. Adrian was more of an exotic pretty. I don't really know how else to explain it, but anyway, so Adrian starts hanging out with us, and the one annoying thing was I wasn't allowed to hang out with Adrian outside of school. Like, Sherry and I were able to hang out outside of school if Sherry came to my house, but Adrian's mom was super strict and she wouldn't let her hang out with anybody outside of school because her mom thought that if she hung out with people outside of school, it would distract her from getting good grades. And yeah, I mean, later on I actually found out that none of that was true at all, and Adrian's mom actually just didn't like me. And I found this out because Adrian had taken a liking to Will. And the one day whenever Sherry's mom dropped Sherry off at my house, she also picked Will up to take Will over to their house. And when I asked Sherry why he was allowed over there and I wasn't, she was like, oh, well, I don't know. Adrian said that they have a project to work on, which was super sus because one, you guys aren't even in the same grade, and two, y'all just so happen to have a project to work on together after you find out that you like each other. Okay, like what a coincidence. Well, then after like 2 weeks, I asked my brother why I wasn't allowed over there, and he was like, oh, well, Adrian's mom low-key hates you, da-da-da, this and that, which is weird as hell for her to tell a child. Like, you are going to tell my own brother that you hate me. Like, what kind of grown adult has beef with a child? Go get some help.
Why are you weird?
Anyway, so the next day I confront Adrian and I'm like, why have you been lying to me? And she's like, I don't know, my mom is just super weird and I didn't want to make you feel bad, but I'm gonna talk to her and ask her if you can come over and meet her and hopefully she'll change her mind about you. So I'm like, all right, whatever. But my whole thing is like, all right, which one of you is going home and talking shit on me to your mom? Because why else would your mom not like me? There's no reason for her not to like me. So fast forward, I go over to Sherry and Adrian's house, and when I met Adrian's mom, she had apologized for making me feel like she hated me, even though she did hate me. I don't know why she's trying to be fake all of a sudden, but she was like, I'm sorry, like, I just get really scared. My daughter's been bullied by girls before, and I just didn't want that to be one of these situations. But after that date, Adrian's mom and I actually became super close. I was able to vent to her about a lot of things that I wasn't able to vent to my actual parents about. She was also telling me about how she was super happy that Will and Adrian were talking because he's such a sweet kid and she really thinks that they're gonna get married. So fast forward, the one day my parents are having a cookout and Will invited Adrian and I invited Sherry, and my parents were the type of parents where they like to get to know my friends' parents because obviously they want to know whose house their kid is at every day, you know. Anyway, so fast forward, Sherry and Adrian's mom get to the house and my mom was outside talking to some of our family members who had came, and my dad was in the kitchen prepping food to put on the grill. So, you know, we lead them into the kitchen and I go to introduce them to my dad, and as soon as my dad turned around, it was like a scene from a fucking movie. Sherry's mom looked like she had seen a ghost, and Adrian's mom dropped the salad that she made for the cookout on the floor. Thankfully it was in a Tupperware container. That's besides the point, getting off track. But that's when my dad's like, oh my god, Luna, you're alive. Yeah, I told y'all we have a lot to unpack in this story time, okay? I hope that all of you are keeping up, okay? I know sometimes it gets a little confusing. Just try your best. And then a few seconds later, Will walks back into the kitchen and he gives Adrian a kiss. And then my mom walks into the kitchen and things get even more awkward. It's not even like anybody said anything to make it awkward. It was just the presence and the tension in the room. You could literally cut it with a knife. Now, Adrian, Will, Sherry, and I are all super confused. And I look at my dad and my mom and I'm like, aren't you guys gonna introduce yourselves? And it had also completely slipped my mind that my dad had already said Luna's name earlier. So, you know, they introduced themselves, and then fast forward, we're all sitting outside at one of the tables and shit is still extremely awkward. Nobody can really figure out why though. But you know, we're all trying to make it as not awkward as possible. We're making small talk, or at least trying to. And then everybody gets to talking about birthdays, and Adrian says her birthday, and then my dad goes, wait a minute, how old did you say you were again? And she goes, oh, I'm 15, about to turn 16. Which, by the way, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, all of us are currently in high school now. After that, my dad is like, Luna, may I speak to you inside, please? And he goes inside to speak with Luna, and then not even 2 minutes later, my mom got her ass up and she went to go and see what the hell is going on in there. So then, of course, I get up from the table because I want to listen to what the hell is going on. So I go inside and I sit by the door, and before Luna and my dad could even get a word out, my mom is going berserk in there. Literally, she is going psychotic, which I don't blame her. But then my dad tells her to shut the fuck up or get out of the room. So then she starts to be quiet. Anyway, so that's whenever my dad says to Luna, why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Like, I can't believe that's my child out there and I don't even know her. And then Luna snitches on my mom and she's like, oh, I did come back here to tell you like 15 years ago, but this threatened me, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, she called my mom a bitch, which wasn't the smartest thing that she could have done in this situation, but she really gave no fucks. But then all of a sudden my mom interrupts them and she starts screaming again because apparently my dad wanted to name me Adrian, and now she's putting the dots together that the reason why he wanted to name me Adrian was because that's what he had planned on naming a future kid that he would have had with Luna. Do you guys get what I mean? Like, I guess Luna and him had planned out their future kids' names, and yeah, you guys get the point. And then my mom also comes to a realization which nobody else came to before this moment. She's like, so hold on a minute. You're telling me that you knew that he was the father of your kid, and you also knew that he was Will's father, and you were still going to let Adrian and Will get together. You are sick. What wrong with you? And Adrian doesn't say anything after that. So that's whenever my mom says, all right, well, I guess we have to tell them. So then the three of them sit us down and they pretty much tell us what the hell is going on. And then they explain why Adrian and Will can't date, which thank God my mom, clearly the only one of those three that has a fucking brain, thought about this, because this was the last rumor that I needed to go around school. You know, that my family was doing some incest shit.
Oh, hell no.
No thank you. Anyway, so after this, Will and I weren't allowed to go over to Adrian or Sherry's house anymore, and they were not allowed to come to our house, which definitely put a strain on Sherry and I's friendship, because Sherry, Adrian, and I were close, right? Like, don't get me wrong, we were close. But Sherry and Adrian were able to hang out every single day because they live in the same house. And they're bound to be closer with each other anyways because they're family. So after that, I felt super excluded and school became super depressing for me. Home was also super depressing because my dad and my mom were fighting 24/7, mainly because my dad wanted to have a relationship with Adrian. So he was saying that he wanted them to spend more time together. My mom was not having it at all. I literally didn't even notice that when I pull my headband up, I have no foundation right there. And it is literally 6:10 in the morning. Anyway, so yeah, my mom is like, listen, she has gone 16 years without you. She doesn't need you now. Like, you missed all of that part of her life. She don't care. She don't want you now. Well, my dad pretty much tells her, listen, I don't care what you say. I'm gonna get to know my daughter. Too bad, so sad. Cry about it later. But while he's trying to get to know Adrian and trying to make up for 16 years that he missed, he was really neglecting Will and I. Like, he wasn't showing up to Will's football games. He wasn't showing up to my dance recitals. I actually even broke my arm and he didn't even come to the hospital with me. He was taking Adrian out to eat. So we love that. W dad. Just kidding. So now I was developing a hatred for Adrian, and I would say it was more of a jealous type of hatred, because I don't think that I mentioned this earlier, but whenever my brother and her first started talking, Will started to push me away. Like, whenever I would want to talk to him about something, he wouldn't really care to listen. He would rather be on the phone with Adrian, and I get it, you know, like, one of the first girls that you've liked and that you're interested in dating wise, but still. Also, Adrian said that she thought it was weird that him and I spent time together as siblings, so he stopped hanging out with me. And it's not like we would spend time together doing weird shit, you know, like we weren't cuddling on the couch watching movies or anything. No, we were playing video games or playing basketball together. Also, I ended up finding out that Luna was also telling Adrian that it was super weird that I was spending time with Will, which her mom's a weirdo for that. Anyway, so I was jealous. I felt like she stole my brother from me originally, and now she's stealing my dad from me. It was just annoying because I felt like everybody was choosing her over me. And now that I think about it, actually, it's not just my dad and my brother. It's also Sherry as well. Like, yeah, Sherry's her cousin, but like at the same time, all of a sudden I'm not allowed to hang out with Sherry anymore. So who is stealing her from me? Adrian. Well, fast forward to my sophomore year of high school, about a year after we found out all that bullshit, my mom eventually finds out that my dad has been cheating on her with Luna ever since my dad found out that Adrian was his kid. What a grimy piece of shit. And by the way, my grandparents passed away whenever I was like 12, so they left all of like their money and shit like that to my mom, but they left the company to my dad. And they also got the house put into my dad's name and etc. Hold on, I know this seems irrelevant. Give me a second. So eventually my mom gives my dad an ultimatum. She's like, look, either you stop seeing Luna or I'm leaving. I respect that you want to get to know Adrian. I get that now. That's fine. There's no need for you to have a relationship with Luna. And my dad goes, I'm not gonna stop seeing my daughter that you kept from me, blah, 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 blah. And he pretty much gave my mom, my brother, and I the boot. So I guess that Luna had told my dad that the 15 years ago when she showed up at our doorstep, she had told my dad that she did tell my mom that she was pregnant with his kid. And my mom pretty much said that she didn't care, and that's when she threatened her. Which, if I remember correctly, I'm almost positive that my mom did threaten her, but I'm also pretty sure that Luna never said anything about being pregnant with my dad's kid. Also, I can say wholeheartedly that my mom would have told my dad that Luna showed up that day saying that she was pregnant, because my mom is the type of person where if she doesn't have any strings attached to you, she could give two shits less about cutting you loose. So the moment that my mom would have found out that Luna was pregnant with my dad's kid, she would have dipped. I mean, but then again, I think at this time she was pregnant with me. But all I know is that if Luna would have told my mom that back then, she definitely would have went and told my dad. So my mom, my brother, and I, we all go to live with my uncle who lives 4 hours away. And then guess what my dad had the nerve to do? He literally moved Luna and Adrian into our house. Literally the house that my parents got from my granddad when they got out of high school. Like the house where my brother and I grew up.
I know I be doing some fucked up things. What I do? But you did a fucked up bird thing.
How fucking disrespectful. Anyways, so even though this was my dad's fault, you could imagine my hatred for Adrian is still just like growing and growing and growing. Especially whenever I would see her or Sherry post pictures in my room on their stories, or even Adrian posting pictures wearing my clothes.
Everybody getting their ass whooped today. Everybody over in that party is getting their ass whooped today.
That was the best. It was just such a messed up situation, to be honest. But fast forward a few months, the one night at like 2 in the morning, my dad shows up to my uncle's house after no calling or no texting or anything. He's like bawling his eyes out, apologizing to my mom, as he should. And then he comes over and he hugs Will and I, and he's like, you guys, I'm so sorry for everything. I've been such a terrible father. And he explained to my mom that he thought that he wasn't over Luna because she just up and left with no explanation whenever they were teenagers. So he didn't get any closure from that situation, and he thought there were still feelings there. So after talking with my mom decided to give him another chance, and we moved back to our hometown. But my mom said the only way that this was gonna happen was if he sold the old house and we moved to a new one, because she said that she was not about to live in a house that she had been kicked out of for another woman to stay there. Absolutely not. That is disrespectful as f***. Like, no. So, you know, my dad, he buys a new house for us. But the one thing that my dad did tell my mom was that either he was going to pay for an apartment for Adrian and Luna to live in until Adrian turns 18, or Adrian was going to come and live with us full time. I was not a fan of this at all, obviously, because I had already made up my mind that I hated her and there was nothing anybody could do to change that. But my mom said that she would rather have Adrian come live with us instead of having my dad pay for anything for Luna. She also didn't want Luna thinking that my dad was like still in love with her or something. Also, it was just plain embarrassing if people found out that my dad was paying for an apartment for a woman that he cheated on my mom with. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I would be embarrassed about that too. But I guess that Luna and Adrian had like a month left in our old house, so that way Luna could go and find somewhere else to live, which was nice because this gave Will, my mom, and my dad and I time to settle into our new house, and this gave my dad a little bit of time to focus on us, you know, to try and make things right. And yeah, even though that ship kind of sailed. During this time, thankfully, I was able to rekindle my friendship with Sherry, and she told me everything that happened between Luna and my dad while we were away. And y'all, apparently right after they moved in together, they started fighting 24/7, and she was caught stealing money from my dad. Also, she would constantly talk shit on my mom, my brother, and I for no reason. Also, the one night my dad had came home late from work, and Luna got super pissed off at him for this, so she invited 2 guys over, and when my dad came home that night, he walked in on her doing it with these 2 random guys. Yeah, sis was a f***ing psycho, literally. Anyway, so fast forward, eventually the time comes for Adrian to move in, and my mom had a super strict rule. Adrian's bedroom had to be on the 1st floor, and my brother had to sleep in the attic, which the attic was finished and everything, so it didn't really matter, but she wanted them nowhere near each other because of the little incest shit that happened in the beginning of the story. My mom did not want no weird shit going on. Anyway, so somehow Adrian and I ended up becoming friends again. Don't really know how that happened. Can't really explain that. But you know, I go back to school, and of course, still she is the center of attention. Still really pissed me off. Mainly because no guys would try to talk to me. They were all trying to talk to her. I was really upset about this until this one guy that I had been like on and off with since 8th grade started talking to me again. And we're gonna call this guy Dave. Him and I have a super complicated history, okay? Anytime that him and I stopped talking, it was because one, there was a rumor going around that I was playing him, or there was always another girl that he had his eye on. But finally the one day he had texted me and he's like, hey, like I really miss you and I want to try to be serious. AKA, he wanted us to be in a relationship. And I never had a boyfriend. I was always the type that would flirt with the boys, but never want something serious because I just found it more fun to flirt. Except for when it came to him. So, you know, him and I start hanging out more, and most of the time he would come to my house, which led to him and Will becoming really good friends. Like, eventually, if he wasn't coming over to hang out with me, he was coming over to hang out with Will. And that was only whenever I would stay after school to tutor or help out with other stuff at the school, because I was super involved with that shit. But a few months later, Dave tells me that he lost feelings for me and he doesn't think that things are working between him and I anymore. Yeah, which really sucked because I really let my walls down with him. And not to mention, just a few days before that, him and I had sex for the first time. Not only was it our first time, but it was my first time. So that was a huge deal to me. Like, after he had told me this, I was feeling super used and worthless, to say the least. Whether it was his intention to make me feel like that or not, I felt awful about myself. And I have super bad trust issues, not even just because of the shit that's been going on with Luna and Adrian, but just in general. So the fact that I let him in and told him things about me that nobody else has known, yeah, that was just this really big deal to me. So I was super heartbroken about this. And throughout the next month, Adrian, that little rat was always asking me if I liked anybody new or if I was over Dave yet. And finally the one day she asks me again and I tell her, no, I'm not over him. And she was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna lie. I really like Dave and I want to date him. I wanted to wait until you were fully over him, but it just seems like you're not gonna be getting over him anytime soon. And I feel like I'm wasting time right now. So I'm like pissed off right now. And I'm like, well, he doesn't even like you. You're not his type. And she goes, yeah, he does. And then I like snap my neck and I'm like, how do you know he likes you? Huh? And she's like, well, the one day whenever he came over, he told me. Which now I'm even more pissed off than I was before. Because the only time that Dave has been in our house was whenever him and I were in a relationship together.
Cut the show. I'm done.
So this whole time, you've been a snake. Like, you knew exactly why things weren't working out between us. Like, this girl really has no respect for girl code whatsoever. Y'all, let's discuss girl code real quick. Because, child, some women have this shit twisted as. And I know that I've been going on a lot of these rants throughout the story times, right? But this is information / advice that I feel that I have to get out into the world, especially to y'all. Heavy on the advice part, because if I can help y'all out in situations that I've been in, then that's what I'm gonna do. Like, y'all are like my baby sisters, so whether you like it or not, I'm gonna give the advice. Okay. No, but seriously, this isn't advice. This is just discussing girl code. Anyways, so like I said, let's discuss it. So I've been in situations where one of my friends will call dibs on a guy, right? But she will never speak to him ever in her life. She just called dibs on him because she thought he was hot. Because of this, nobody else in our friend group is allowed to go for him, which I would understand if they had something going on. But she would call dibs and never speak about them ever again. Unless one of my friends or I would go for this man. Then she would freak out on us and be like, I called dibs, you're breaking girl code, blah, 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 blah. You know that I liked him. And I'm just gonna say something right now. Girl code is I'm not gonna go for him if y'all had something going on. So to me, in this situation, this man would be off limits to me, especially because he led her on, caused a lot of emotional distress, also pretty much used her to do the nasty. I wouldn't even want to go for anybody like that, to be honest. But if they didn't have anything going on, it's fair game. If you ask them out and they said no, they're up for grabs. I'm gonna go for them still. If y'all went on a date and he wasn't feeling you, those are not your sloppy seconds, babe. That is called he didn't want you and it's fair game. And I know I sound like not a girl's girl for saying that, but like I'm 110% a girl's girl, right? But you have those situations where you'll meet a girl once, like y'all are barely acquaintances, and then all of a sudden they expect their ex or somebody that they like to be off limits. Like, girl, I don't know you. Y'all can call me a terrible person if you want, but last time I checked, that is not my friend. And you were not about to sit here and talk shit on me because we had one conversation and all of a sudden when your ex wants to get with me, we're besties. Like I said, I'm girl's girl, but at the end of the day, every guy would be off limits if we actually played by those rules. Like, sis, if you ask a guy out on a date and he says no and your best friend wants to go for him and y'all had nothing going on, you should not be mad at her. There was nothing between you and that guy, okay? Okay. Anyways, let me know what you guys consider to be a part of girl code and what you don't consider to be a part of it. Because I feel like at this point, getting with anybody who has been with somebody is breaking girl code. Anyways, sorry for the rant. Back to the story. Like I said, she told me that she wanted to go out with him and I was like, fine, I don't give a f. Go ahead. Do it. Go ahead. I don't even care anymore. Like, just keep taking everything from me, Adrian. See what happens. Keep doing it. So eventually Adrian and Dave start dating and I have to see them around my house every day. So eventually I start going out with Sherry almost every night of the week and we would go to like a bunch of parties on the weekends, which was super fun, but I literally had to be out of the house at all times because I just couldn't be near this. Anyway, so fast forward to this one party, I meet this guy who we're going to call Brayden, and him and I start talking, and the whole entire party, him and I are just sitting on the couch, enjoying each other's company, not even paying attention to anybody else. Like, everybody's like being like, oh, come to the kitchen and take shots, blah, 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 blah. And we are not even paying attention. We're just like focused on each other so much, and it was so refreshing. But while we're enjoying each other's company, guess who shows up to the party? Yeah, Dave. And he's screaming my name, trying to find me. Like, where is your owner? Why are you here? And why are you screaming my name? Get my name out of your mouth. Anyways, so he sees me with Brayden. He comes over to us and he's like, hey Brayden, can I borrow her real quick? And like that is one thing. Do not walk up to somebody and ask if you can borrow me. Ask me if we can speak. That's weird. Acting like I'm somebody's property. Like, hey, can I borrow her real quick? No, how about you ask me if we can talk real quick? That's fucking weird. Like, ew. Anyways, so I go with Dave and he was so drunk I could barely understand what he was saying, but it was something along the lines of he doesn't actually love Adrian and he just wanted to be with her because they had really good sexual chemistry, which I'm pretty sure is not what you say to somebody that you're trying to get back into a relationship with. Thanks for the honesty, but no thank you. But yeah, what I got from that conversation was he wanted to still be with me, but I decided to call Adrian and tell her to come and get her dog, put it back on a leash. I didn't even care to tell her about what he said because it didn't mean anything to me. So after they leave, I go over to Brayden and bruh, guess what this man says to me? He's like, yeah, I didn't know that you and Dave used to hang out. AKA he didn't know that we used to be a thing. And I'm like, oh, like we only talked. And then he goes, yeah, but Dave is one of my boys. I can't really do that to him. And then he walks away. Like, what? See ladies, it's not even just girl code that doesn't make any sense. It's bro code too. It sucks whenever you want to go for someone's homeboy, but you can't because of bro code. And hey, listen to me right now. Before You get to judging me. Listen to what I have to say. Hear me out. Don't make that face. I don't mean being in a relationship with a guy and then wanting to go for his homeboy. I mean, you're in a situation where since their homeboy liked you, they can't go for you. Even though you literally shut their homeboy down multiple times and you never had anything with them, they still can't go for you. Like, what do you mean you can't do your homeboy like that? Do him like what? Your man's asked if we could go on a date and I said no. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyways, so I'm sitting there in complete shock. And now it is my mission to ruin Adrian's life because she couldn't keep her dog on a leash and just stop stealing everything from me. So, you know, she was so in love with Dave. Like, she thought that man was her soulmate. Meanwhile, he didn't like her. He actually was in love with me. He only got with her because they had good, quote, sexual chemistry. And I know you guys are probably thinking, well, maybe he doesn't actually love you. Maybe he was just drunk. No, actually, because I confronted him the one day when he came over and he was waiting for Adrian to show up. And he said that he did mean it and he was waiting for me to let him know if I felt the same way. Well, then I put a plan in motion to destroy her mentally. As you guys can tell from the beginning of the story, whenever I embarrassed Paris, I'm more of a mental abuser, not a physical one. So I decide that I am going to hook up with Dave, quote, behind her back, but leave subtle hints here and there and then lie straight to her face whenever she catches me. For example, the one day that he came over, I told him that I wanted to do it with him and he should just sneak into the bathroom and I would meet him in there. So he does exactly what I tell him to do. And I end up telling him that we should probably go to my room just in case she checks the bathroom, which her and I's bedrooms were right next to each other on the first floor. So Adrian ends up going to check on him while she thinks he's in the bathroom. So I hurry up and tell him to get out of my room and go back into her room. So he sneaks into her room real quick while she's checking the bathroom. Oh, and I made sure to leave my underwear right in front of the bathroom door. And then all of a sudden I hear her running back to her room and she goes inside of her room, slams the door. I'm like listening through the wall and she's like, where were you? And Dave goes, what do you mean where was I? I went to the bathroom. And she was like, I went to the bathroom and checked, you weren't in there. And then he was like, I don't like this side of you, accusing me of doing things when I've never given you a reason not to trust me. You know, we love the emotional manipulation. We don't like it, okay? We don't. But in this situation, I felt like this bitch deserved it, okay? Okay. So anyways, later that night, I hear Adrian call Sherry. And she's like, I think that Dave and my sister slept together. And then Sherry's like, why do you think that, Adrian? And then Adrian tells her about how my underwear were in the bathroom and how all of a sudden Dave magically appeared in her bedroom. And listen, Sherry knew what was going on, like my whole plan, because I had told her. She didn't approve of it at all, but she wasn't gonna tell Adrian because she knew that Adrian was fucked up for all the shit that she had been doing. So I'm listening to their conversation and I text Sherry and I'm like, you can tell her that we did it. And then Sherry goes, well, do you want me to just ask her? Because you know she'll tell me. And then Adrian goes, oh my God, yeah, ask her. So, you know, Sherry pretends to text me and then she goes, oh my God, Adrian, they did. And then all of a sudden I hear Adrian crying and she stomps outside of her room and starts pounding on my door. And I open the door and she's like, I know you slept with Dave. Sherry told me. And then she starts going on about how, oh, like, you think that you can tell my cousin this stuff and she's not gonna tell me, newsflash, da-da-da-da-da, like, newsflash, babe, you're dumb. Anyways, so yeah, she tells me, she's like, I know you slept with Dave, and I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do about it? And she just stares at me with like this blank face, like she was expecting me to apologize or something. And then I was like, exactly, you're not gonna do shit, and I slammed the door in her face, because you're not. So yeah, and then she, I'm not gonna lie, I was really a like, I really was, because for the next like month she dealt with, and for the next month she had to deal with listening to Dave and I doing it in my room, which was next to hers. He would be like, oh babe, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and then he would literally just come into my room. Well, eventually she told my mom and my dad and I got grounded, which I don't really know how that helps the situation, because babe, your boyfriend still disrespected you so badly and you did nothing about it. I disrespected you. I told you to your face that I didn't care that you knew I was sleeping with your boyfriend and you didn't do anything about it. You're pathetic. Also, I don't know how me being grounded is going to help your case, because now I'm just always gonna be home when you and your boyfriend are home. Anyway, so fast forward to my senior year in high school, Adrian and I have kept our distance from each other, and she's still dating Dave. And now I am dating Brayden. I don't know how I pulled that one over, because he was so adamant about this whole bro code thing until Dave told him, listen bro, it's fine, you can date her, even though Dave is literally still in love with me. But yeah, Brayden and I were in this perfect relationship, but he didn't know anything that happened between Dave, Adrian, or I. And I wanted to keep it that way. So I told Adrian that if she didn't tell Brayden about that whole mess of a situation, I would leave her and Dave alone. Because whenever Dave would come over, he literally would still try to knock on my door and try to talk to me and stuff. So she agrees, and things were going smooth until Thanksgiving. So my parents decided that they were gonna host Thanksgiving dinner at our house, and my whole family showed up, including Adrian and Dave, and Brayden came with me, and then Will had a few of his guy friends over. But Dave and Adrian were over at Luna's house for their Thanksgiving dinner over there, and then the plan was for them to come back to our house. Well, fast forward to later that night, we are all done eating dinner and I'm at the kitchen sink doing dishes with my dad, when all of a sudden Brayden stomps over to the counter, rips his car keys off of the hook, and he points at me and he's like, you're done. We are done. And so I hurry up and run outside after him, and I'm like, what are you talking about? What happened? And in my head, I didn't even think that Adrian would have told him because I've left her and Dave alone. But then he goes, I can't believe you've been Dave this whole time. And then I look at him and I'm like, what are you talking about? I haven't done anything with him. Well, then Adrian and Dave storm outside. And then I ask Adrian, I'm like, why are you telling Brayden that Dave and I slept together? And she's like, you told me you were gonna leave Dave and I alone and you didn't. So that's your fault. And then I look at Dave and I'm like, Dave, why are you telling her that we slept together? We haven't slept together. Why are you lying? Well, I guess that Mr. Dave forgot to throw away some open condom wrappers in his car, and Adrian found them, and she thought that they were because him and I were fucking in his car. So after we all explain the situation to Brayden is looking at all of us like we are some sort of fucked up family, and he's like, I don't care, I don't want to be with you. He was like, you're an awful person. And I'm like, you're not wrong, but what the fuck? For him to actually say that to my face, like, that was rude. At least say it over text. After this, I decide that Adrian is done, and I was going to find anything to destroy her. But Dave and Adrian ended up breaking up. Brayden and I, obviously, we weren't together anymore after that shit. But eventually, fast forward, I go to college, and shit for me was going really good there. I had actually started dating this guy named Brent a few months after I got to college, and we were in a perfect relationship. But I go home for Christmas that year to visit my family, and I had no idea that Adrian got pregnant. So she dropped out of college, and she moved back home, I think like literally less than a month after she had got to college. Anyway, so yeah, she still lives at home. And I didn't know this, and y'all are never gonna guess whose kid it is. It is Will's kid. Bro, what the fuck? Literally, it's our brother's kid, half brother, but still disgusting. And I would just also like to mention that my brother is a senior in high school. He is younger than both of us, 2 years younger than her, actually, now that I think about it. I actually don't know how Adrian was in the same grade as me. Maybe she was just like dumb, or Luna probably did some weird shit to hold her back so that way she would be in the same grade as me. I would have passed her. Anyway, so yeah, I found this out because Will told me that he had something that I could use against Adrian because he knew that she put me through a lot and he feels bad that he didn't do anything about it. So he was like, yeah, no, she's pregnant with my kid. You can do with that information as you want. Please do whatever you want with it. Well, anyways, I did do something with that information, but I also found out who Adrian's new boyfriend was. She was dating some guy named Kyle. I found him on her social media, and I DM'd him and I'm like, hey, I'm Adrian's sister, and I know that you guys are dating and she's pregnant with your kid. I would really love to get to know my niece or nephew's dad. Like, you're gonna be my brother-in-law soon, so I feel like we should go out to dinner and I should see if you're the right man for my sister. And he was like, oh my god, yeah, of course, I'm always down for meeting people in Adrian's family. I want you guys to all accept me, blah, 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 da, 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 some dumb shit. So, you know, I tell him that we should go to this bar, and we go there, and we eat, and we talk, and we get drunk, and then we go back to my house, and none of my family was home because they were visiting other family for the holidays. So all the lights are off in the house, and we go into, quote, my bedroom. It was really Adrian's, but he was way too drunk to notice. And then we do the nasty in her room, in her bed. And whenever I heard the car pull up, I literally, Adrian bolted in the house. Like, you could hear her pregnant ass running towards her bedroom to open the door because I made sure that Kyle parked in the front of the house. So that way she knew that when she pulled up, why is my boyfriend's car here at the same time that my sister's home from college? Yeah. So she opens her bedroom door and I knew her ass wasn't gonna do shit. So I look at her and I'm like, we're busy. Can you close the door? And I was about to get back to what I was doing until less than 2 seconds later, Adrian had a fistful of my hair and she was dragging me down the hallway while I was naked. I'm not gonna lie, I got a well-deserved ass beating that day. And I'm talking go to the hospital ass beating because she had hit my head off of something and I needed to get stitches in the back of my head. And while we're in the hospital, I decided to spill the beans about Will and Adrian's incest child, and oh my god, my mom just about had a damn heart attack. So my dad was going to kick Will out of the house, but then my mom was like, dude, you do realize that she is a full-on adult, like she should know better. Okay. So then they kick Adrian out and Adrian moves back in with Luna. Sadly, I would say very shortly after this, Adrian got super heavily into drugs because of her mom, and Will didn't want anything to do with the baby because he soon admitted to us that Adrian actually forced him to sleep with her. Fast forward, Adrian has their incest child and she actually unalived it because she said voices in her head were telling her to. She's in jail right now. I'm not really sure if she got life. I don't think she did. And as for me, I am happier than ever because Brent and I just celebrated our 3-year anniversary.